Namaste. My name is Vivekanand. Welcome to this Hangout on Air. Let me start my timer and let's get started. This is the fourth episode in a series that I have started with a view to help entrepreneurs who have lots and lots of ideas and would like to start lots of projects. In this episode, the focus is on risk handling. If you think that every project that is well designed and well planned should have no risk at all, then you would be wrong. Let us discuss this and more today. I have great pleasure in welcoming my panel of business owners today. And here is the agenda for today. We begin with just a minute where each panel member takes center stage and gives 60 seconds elevator pitch, followed by a short presentation covering the topic of the day. Today it's going to be risk handling and how it relates to PRINCE2 methodology. Then we shall have a discussion with the panel members sharing their experiences and insights. I shall talk about what is coming up in the next episode and we conclude for today. As in the previous episode, my aim is half an hour, but I would not dare to cut off anybody when discussion is lively. I'm not going to cut off myself either when the discussion is lively and adding value. Now we have come to the just a minute section. Each of us will have a minute each and we shall give you our 60-second elevator pitches. Within a minute, each of us will try to explain why anyone should contact us, how it would be helpful for them, and how can they contact and connect with us. There will be a penalty if you go over a minute. Of course, that's a joke. The penalty is you will have to say the sentence integrate, simplify life 3 times. I apply the same rule to myself, but the penalty for me would be decided by the panel members. And let me be the first victim. Let me be the first one to do that. And the panelists can decide how to penalize me. I have a 1-minute timer running here. Namaste. My name is Vivekanand. Wake Technology is my company. I believe in living a simple life. I believe in thinking differently. I am proud to share my beliefs with Steve Jobs and Leonardo da Vinci, who said simplicity is the ultimate in sophistication. Here's my simple way. Avoid cowboys, work with the Indian. Let the Indian handle technology. And you live an integrated, simple life. To integrate, simplify life, contact me through my Google Plus page or my website, wake-technology.com. Hope that came within 60 seconds. It's our guest turn now. I shall pin each of you, and of course, so far we have only David Leopold. I'm pinning you, David, and it's your turn.
Google knows me as David F. Small Biz David Leopold, and I'm actually a cowboy. So you can decide if you want to work with the cowboy or work with the Indian or work with the team, because as a team we collaborate wonderfully together. I spend virtually all my time, Vivek, building a community that I call Dreaming with Entrepreneurs in Google Plus. We've got a lot of really fun, interesting things going on, and I agree with you. I want to simplify my life. And so it wouldn't bother me to go over 60 seconds and say your mantra. It, it wouldn't bother me at all. But I am probably the most risk-averse person you've ever met.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, it's a good trait. You are well under a minute, yeah.
Oh, I was worried there. I thought I was going to have to mantra.
And yeah, it's risk, as you said, risk averse, yes. But still, I would still say we need to be aware of the risks, and we need to manage how we handle the risks, and that's what we are going to talk about today. We have now come to the topic of the day. I shall now show you a short presentation. Let me start off with the agenda for this short presentation. The agenda, as usual, is answer to 3 questions. Why risk? How to handle risk? What can a small business do to handle risks successfully? Now, let me start with the answer to the first question. And let me quote Seth Godin for you. In his book, The Icarus Deception, Seth Godin says, safest thing you can do is take a risk, or what feels like a risk. And the riskiest thing you can do is play it safe. We shall discuss about this later on today, but is it time for a story now? I think it is. This story covers answers to both why and how questions. Let me tell you a snippet of a story from Star Trek Enterprise, The Next Generation, Season 3, The Ensigns of Command. I hope you all are familiar with Star Trek, the science fiction TV series. I know David Emerland is a great fan, and he often talks about the computer on board the Starship Enterprise. This is a story where JeanLuc Corporate want to occupy 5th planet in the Tau Cygni system as per an Armen's treaty. The JeanLuc find a human colony there and ask Starfleet to evacuate all humans from the planet. The JeanLuc consider humans to be lowly creatures, and they would have exterminated humans but for the treaty, which prevented them from doing that. The planet is in a part of the galaxy which is bombarded with hyperonic radiation. Hyperonic radiation is known to be fatal to humans. Weapons such as phasers would not work, and transporter is out of the question. Now, here's a very important point. If you think that we should avoid all risks, you would be wrong, because only in the face of such insurmountable odds humans thrive. Not just survive, but thrive. So avoiding all risks is cowardice and stops innovation and inventions. Instead, we should recognize the risks involved and take appropriate steps. Here's an additional human element of the story. In this opening scene of this episode, Mr. Data suggests that the Captain Jean-Luc Picard and Dr. Beverly Crusher listen to a violin recital by someone else because he lacks soul. That's what he says there. Dr. Beverly Crusher advises him by saying, telling us why you will fail before making the attempt is never wise. Captain JeanLuc Picard adds that excessive honesty can be disastrous, particularly in a commander, since those under his command would then lose confidence. He says, knowing your limitations is one thing, but advertising them to your crew damages your credibility as a leader. I bring this human aspect because it is particularly relevant for me. As an engineer myself, I often end up being too honest and frank with prospective clients. Anyway, in the story, Enterprise warps over to the Tau Cygna 5. The captain then finds that the only way forward is to send Mr. Data in a shuttlecraft, since as an android he is not affected by radiation. Captain is not even sure that there would still be humans alive down on the planet because the hyperonic radiation is very strong, and without the shields, everyone on Enterprise would be dead. Mr. Data goes down to the planet and finds that there are more than 15,000 people on the planet. This certainly increases the effort involved in rescuing the people. The people on the planet are descendants of people from Starfleet. They have worked very hard to adapt and survive in spite of hyperonic radiation. But now, Mr. Data has another problem. They are not convinced when he tells them about the situation. Mr. Data tries to convince them with his logical arguments, but their leader, Mr. Goshavan, is not convinced. When a Miss Adrian Mackenzie shows enthusiasm about meeting an android such as Mr. Data, Goshavan is very dismissive and refuses to be convinced by a walking calculator. Goshavan is a passionate and proud man, though he comes across as being stubborn and irrational. Miss Adrian Mackenzie is convinced that Mr. Data is stating the facts because he is an android and computers don't lie. So they form an alliance, and she suggests that Mr. Data should use some reverse psychology. Mr. Data reiterates that reverse psychology means elicit a desired behavior by advocating its opposite. Data also gives the interpretation that it implies deception. You see, so far, Mr. Data is not successful as a project manager here. We come back to the first point stated at the start of this Star Trek episode. Mr. Data realizes that this is probably a situation where excessive honesty can be detrimental, and he realizes he needs to take some definite action. Quite possibly, this is what goes on in Mr. Data's positronic brain. Actually, this is a mind map of how PRINCE2 sees risk. It's a very sophisticated map, and there is a lot of information there. So let me do a screen share so that you can see it more clearly. I need to pin you, David, and you can interact as I'm doing that.
Interact as in participate? I'm loving the Star Trek Enterprise story that you're telling, Vivek, because and I never really looked at it the same way when I was watching Star Trek when it was being done. I never looked at it in a way that you are making me look at it today. And the Starship Enterprise folks, the community
Mm.
of Starship Enterprise, they were entrepreneurs.
Mm.
And you know that's my major theme is entrepreneurship and what it's all about and why it's all about. And it's very interesting that we are talking today about a concept that has been an important part of my thinking. Risk. Well, continue on, and
Mm.
I have a
Yeah.
lot. I have a lot of stuff to say about risk.
Okay. I need to pin myself so that you can see the screen share.
Are you telling me we need to throw the dice on this?
That represents risk. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, but look at you got the number 7 up there, so that's pretty good.
Yeah. You are welcome to interact, but yeah, I have a lot to cover, so yeah, it could. Let me now show the highlighted section in a separate map, because there already is a lot there on that particular section of the mind map itself. Okay, here's a definition. PRINCE2 defines risk as an uncertain event that, should it occur, will have an effect on the achievement of objectives. As we have seen in the Star Trek story, a risk can present a great opportunity when you consider the positive impact and the magnitude of the impact. You would need to consider the probability of the event happening. You may even take actions which would increase the probability that the event does happen when you find that it gives you great advantages. On the other hand, it may be a threat if the impact is negative. So in the story, when Mr. Data is trying to convince the humans on the planet, Captain Jean-Luc Picard decides to take Enterprise to intercept the Shellyak ship, which is on its way to occupy the planet. And he tries to bargain with the captain of that ship. A very important point to note here is, in business, an event which presents a great opportunity for you may become a great threat if your competitor takes up the opportunity and succeeds. The impact would be worse if you never recognized the opportunity in the first place. Let me now get back to the big mind map. Again, it looks very sophisticated, so let me explain the highlighted part of the mind map there. This is about risk management. For risk management, you need to identify the risks clearly. You need to have a procedure in place to handle the situation should the risk become a reality. I have a separate mind map for the procedure to be followed, but I would not go into that because it would be too evolved. You need to identify responses, assign owners who would be responsible. You need to control executing the responses and also monitor it. You also need to assess the likelihood that the risk becomes a reality, assess the impact and the immediacy of the risk event. Responsibilities are assigned at various levels. You need to have a strategy in place which states the tolerances, so that as soon as you sense the tolerance being exceeded, you need to take appropriate action. As I mentioned in previous episodes, PRINCE2 is based on management by exception, which means as soon as a likely problem or issue is detected by anyone, the issue is to be raised, and the project manager, along with the project board, has to take appropriate action. For example, the tolerance may be the price of a component required for your project going up or coming down. In both situations, if the tolerance is likely to be exceeded, something has to happen. I have now come to the end of the topic of the day presentation, and let me come back into your view, and I would pin you again, David. Come out of the screen share. Hopefully that presentation was worthwhile. And what are your thoughts, David?
My first thought, Vivek, is that I've now been with you. This is the fourth episode that I've participated with you, and if I might say, the episodes are getting stronger and stronger with each new week, and I'm enjoying watching that involvement. Your presentation today was absolutely the best one that you have done and I'm not saying the other ones are bad. I'm just saying this is the best one that I have watched since episode number 1.
Thank you.
Slide, the page that you had that was my favorite in your presentation, and I would like to focus on it as my experience, is one where you defined risk. It had the definition of risk as a puzzle piece. On the left-hand side was threat. On the right-hand side was opportunity. And actually, if you want to go back to that slide, why don't we go back to that slide so as I'm making my comments on it, people can see it. That one right there. And why don't you screen share that one so we can look at it a little bit better, because it's a great, to me that was the best slide you had in your presentation. Okay, Here we go. You've done a wonderful definition of risk. Uncertain. Should it occur, will have an effect on the achievement of objectives. That states the concept of risk very simply, and I know how you like simplicity. But here's where you and I can maybe have a little debate, or I'm going to share my thoughts with you. The left-hand side represents threat, and threat is one of the strongest negative words I think one could have. You know, we fear a threat. You set it up there on your first line up there, your first outcome, risk with negative impact. We've got a threat as if we look at life, and if we look at different things that we do as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, and we think about negative things, positive things are never going to happen. So I say eliminate the left-hand side of that graph and focus on the opportunity. And here's what I mean by that. If we take the time to look at life, look at events as opportunities, that is a very, very positive thing. And if we eliminate the negative thought, and risk in and of itself is negative. That's a negative thing, although it's a fact of life. It exists, but it's a negative thing. And if we spend time thinking about that risk and thinking about that as a threat, we may never get to really explore that full opportunity that exists on the right-hand side of your definition. And now, what is it that you say the very first outcome of opportunity is a risk with positive impact? If we if we think of life, and take that word risk out of there, because when you interject, and I'm not saying, I'm being, I don't know, an idealist. I don't know what I'm being. Uh, when you think about, when you look at life, when you look at opportunities in the as a possibility of a risk or a possibility of a threat, you may not that maybe you should, maybe you should go through the mindset of doing it, but spend 60 seconds on it, no more than 60 seconds, and then get rid of it. And after that first 60 seconds, when you think about it and you look at it as an opportunity, which is something very positive, then go for it. Go for it with all your passion. Go for it as best you possibly can. So that's that's really how I look at life, Vivek. I guess I was very, not guess, I know I was very, very fortunate that early on in my career at age 24, I was involved in a business opportunity actually with my mother, and I didn't enjoy the experience because I wanted to be my mother's son. I didn't want to be my mother's business partner. And so I had a conversation with her, of which her father, my grandfather, overheard. And he said, "Okay, David, if that's the way you feel, that's okay. If that's the way you feel, that's okay. Give your mother $10,000 and move on." That's what my grandfather told me to do. And I said, "Papa, you're the boss. If that's what I'm supposed to do, that's what I'm going to do." And you know what? I did not think about that negative part of that risk. My grandfather, who I trusted, my grandfather, who was one of my mentors very early in life, if he told me that's what I should do, I was going to listen to him. That's what I need to do, because he was a very successful entrepreneur himself. And if I never had, I wish Vivek, I had a discussion with him about that concept of threat. And I know I know what my grandfather would have said. I absolutely know what he would have said when I say threat. He said, threat's a negative thing. Don't think about threats. Look at the upside of things. Look at that opportunity and pursue that opportunity. Okay, that's my story, Vivek.
Yeah, I would say, as I already said that, in fact, but let me say that again. Any opportunity can become a major threat if your competitor takes it, and he or they, I mean, your competitor becomes more successful than you are. So it's
Okay.
There's a kind of thin line between an opportunity and a threat.
Okay, now I'm going to take issue with you on what you just said. Because once again, and I think everything ties in really nicely. People spend too much negative energy about thinking about competition.
Yeah, true.
To me, my only competitor is myself. My only competitor is myself. And I say that because I can't control what the other guy does. The other guy is going to do what they think is the best thing for them to do. So forget about it. Don't worry about what they are doing. Focus on what you want to do. Focus on the value that you can bring to the marketplace with your thinking. Don't worry about the competition, because if you do, then you're spending too much time giving credence. You might as well go support them and go work for them. Go work for the competition. If that's, just get it out of your mindset.
Yeah, yesterday I saw a talk on TED, where he showed an art somebody's art. This is a historic art actually, and in that art, it's a circular kind of art. It's a picture art, and there are if you look at the image by concentrating on the white elements of it's a art which is black and white. If you concentrate on the parts which are white, you see all angels, angels holding hands or whatever in a circle. Same image. If you look at if you concentrate on the black aspects, you would see evil images. I think it looks like bat or something like that, which probably represents bad. So it's the same image. Actually, it's the same image. You concentrate on things that are in white, you see angels. You concentrate on the black components of the image, you see the evil. So I agree with you. It all depends on what you concentrate on. So yeah.
Isn't that the truth?
Yes.
And white represents purity, and black represents darkness and fear. Darkness and fear. And so if we live our lives in whiteness and we live our lives in purity, then we move forward. And I love the concept of a circle, because probably life is very, very circular. We start at the top of the circle, and we kind of move around that circle and then come back to the beginning and then start another circle. And maybe the circle, not maybe, the circles that we just alluded to are the projects that Prince talks about. Those are the circle represents the project. So if we keep the stuff inside that circle white, and we travel around and do the various steps of the project that we need to do and bring the project to completion, then we go over and we create another circle that represents another project. Hey, I'm starting to understand this stuff, Vivek. You're a great teacher. You're a great philosopher.
Yeah, it's when you said life and being circular and so on, there's a talk which you can actually find. I have a link to that on my website. It's actually it's a TED talk, and it's a talk where an Indian like myself, though he is more popular and so on, more successful, whatever you want to call it, he talks about the differences in Western philosophy and Eastern philosophy. And in that he says, for whatever reasons, the Western philosophy seems to think that we have one life, we start at birth and go through the life, and that's the end of it. Whereas the Eastern philosophy is actually thinks of the whole thing as a circle. You start somewhere, you go through life, one life. And when it comes to the end, you start another one. And so it goes around in a circle. That's.
I don't know. Oh my goodness, we might have to go back to the cowboy and Indian analogy that we started with in the first part. You're my favorite Indian, and I'm my favorite cowboy. And, so, and you just told me how I need to think of life as something circular, a project, and the top of the circle. Well, you start and you do the things that you need to do, complete that one, start another one. I like the Indian philosophy a whole lot better than the cowboy philosophy. I think you might have won me over, Vivek. I'm a cowboy, man. I shoot from the hip. We got to make it work. The Indian philosophy knows that it's going to work if you do all the right things that you're supposed to do to draw that circle, and then you just move on to the next circle. Oh my goodness!
It's
I'm gonna have to get rid of. I'm gonna have to get rid of all my cowboy mentality.
it's it's yeah, it has been a great discussion as usual, David, and we have now come to the what's coming up next week section. Next week, same time, same place, we would talk about change theme of PRINCE2. Here's a mind map, and yes, I would explain it all in the next episode.
Before you get off that screen, can you focus in on the part of the mind map that talks about change?
The whole thing is about change. How PRINCE2 sees the change, how you handle change, how you. So I would be explaining that in the next episode. If I try to do that now, I would not be doing justice to that.
No, and I don't necessarily mean to explain it. I mean to tease us with what's going to happen. With what's going to happen next week. Tease me.
Yeah, it talks about the purpose, types of issues, consideration, when you handle these things, configuration management plan, and so on and so forth. Lots of things there. Yeah.
I was going to say, I just posed the question this week in a kind of a short blog that I did. I talked about change agents, agents within small business. Who is that change agent? Is it the owner of the business? Is it the marketplace that demands a change to the thinking? And change, when you think about it, and it ties. Excuse me, it ties back to risk. Change is that thing that, okay, if I change, what's the risk? What's my risk if I make that change? And like I said, I live my life. If I think it's the right thing to do, I just do it. But we've got to check. The other point is we've got to constantly keep an open mind to change. You know, we as entrepreneurs think that we have the answers to questions. We bring value to the marketplace with our thinking, but we may not be right on. We might not be right on unless we can communicate that concept to the marketplace. And if you know what, if we do a bad job of communicating it, then we need to change. We need to change our communication. We need to change our mindset about change. So change is it's something that entrepreneurs really need to give a lot of good hard thought to. So if you're watching this, I urge you to come next week or watch the recorded video next week when we talk about change.
Yeah. And I'm going to say, make sure you make necessary changes to your schedule and join us. Okay, it's closing thoughts. We have come to the end of the show for today. David?
My closing comment is I can't remember the last time I had so much fun being involved in an HOA that you have been in producing, Vivek, and I commend you for what you're doing, for how you're doing it, and you're making change. You're doing things that you need to do to get folks more engaged, and thank you for creating an opportunity for me to participate in the discussion.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I'm sure you would want to know more, as this is a series of HOAs, there is more to come. Thank you for watching the show. Do please share the link to this show on Google Plus and YouTube and so on. You can reach me through my Google Plus profile or through my website, wake-technology.com. And my closing comments, as usual, are integrate, simplify life. Thank you.